Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to InnerViews, the podcast where we dive deep into the realms of therapy, healing, and intentional living. I'm your guide on this adventure, Ivory. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey with me? Whether you're navigating the complexities of trauma, embracing intentional parenting, or seeking self-help strategies, this podcast is your sanctuary. InnerViews is not just a podcast, it's a community, a safe space where stories unfold and healing takes center stage. Your story matters. And here, courageous storytelling is the heartbeat of our existence. We'll be exploring powerful themes like healing, navigating the intricacies of foster care, the strength found in survival, the beauty of reclamation, and the pure bliss of joy. So if you're ready to join hands with a community that understands, subscribe now. Let's walk this path together because the journey toward understanding and well-being starts right here, right now. Welcome to InnerViews, where every step is a celebration of your resilience and a testament to the incredible strength within you. Let's make this journey unforgettable. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of InnerViews. My name is Ivory, and I'm super excited to welcome you to today's guest, Leigh-Anna. Please tell me how you would like me to refer to you throughout this conversation today. And then after that, are you able to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Leigh-Anna Faith. You can call me just Leigh-Anna or LA. And yeah, I am 27 years old. I am a former foster youth of 4 years out of the great state of California. And I've lived in New York City for almost 10 years, where I've made my life and career post foster care, and I'm in the legal field.
Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like, firstly, you've existed in spaces where we have some of our largest funding here at FMC, and it's really cool to be able to hear your perspective. Also, because the populations where you are have such diversity and just great numbers in terms of LA and New York. So that's really cool. And thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your insight and your law. Can you specify what kind of law you practice for those who may work in it? Because we do have some people who are in that field.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love that you said law that I practice, even though I'm not yet a lawyer. So I love we're manifesting
You're
together.
manifesting it. You will be practicing it soon.
Yeah, so yeah, I can talk about my law experience and what I do now. For the past almost 4 years, I've worked at a legal aid nonprofit here in New York. Specifically, I work with low-income tenants in the Bronx and prevent their evictions in housing court. So landlords bring them to court for non-payments or holdovers. They just want them out of the apartment for whatever reason, and we try to resolve that. So my job as a paralegal, it's more of like a social work role as opposed to when you think of like a corporate. I'm not Meghan Markle in suits. Yeah, I'm doing benefits advocacy. So I'm applying to receive funds from public and private sources to recover the back rent that folks owe. I also work with HIV positive individuals on their benefits. That's a special bucket of our work in the Bronx. And then I'm currently in law school as well. I finish actually this December, and I'm at CUNY Law here in New York City, amazing public interest school, and I'm hoping to practice immigration law. I had a really great experience doing immigration work at our clinic at CUNY Law. I got to work on a case with fellow classmates, which was affirmed that's the work I want to do. And yeah, I hope that I could work with unaccompanied minors who come to the United States and get put in the long-term foster care and shelter system here and represent them, because as a lot of us know, immigrants aren't entitled to legal representation in their court proceedings. So that's what I've dabbled in my work. I also did some juvenile justice public defense this last summer in San Diego.
I'm proud of you, especially coming where we come from. It's not easy to just be a human being, but it's to have the lived experience and to get yourself through all of these trainings and educational programs. And just, I know a lot of the work that comes alongside the work that you're doing is the social navigation aspect of it and the networking aspect of it. It's a lot to have to do without traditional guidance. And so kudos to you. Truly, truly, truly.
Thank you.
And I'm going to plug NACC, National Association of Counsel for Children here. It's an organization that you'll probably want to get involved with if you're not already, just because the work is so aligned and it's just a really great group of legal representatives who are doing cool stuff across the country.
I actually haven't heard of them before. So, I mean, but there's always a bar association or a council for something. Like lawyers are so like, we love our groups. So I think
Well,
it's
I'm not a lawyer and I love them.
yeah, no, of course. But there's always, even if there's not an organization. That's what I love about being in the legal field. Even if there's not an organization that technically serves the really niche needs, there's a lot of volunteer cohorts or coalitions that are working on things outside of their regular 9 to 5 day job. So it's really awesome. That's what I like about the law too. And it really coalition builds across not just lawyers, but folks like yourself who advocate for you.
Yeah, totally. I can connect you to them after the conversation today. So, speaking of all of these things, what did aging out mean for you emotionally, practically, and personally? You said you spent 4 years in foster care. What did it mean to age out?
Yeah, I that question, because I've been on panels, I've spoken a lot. I speak a lot about my experience. And I think the one thing I haven't touched on, but that was important for me to start talking about was the fact that I entered care at 17. I categorically was aging out. It was 5 days after my 17th birthday that I entered. So I think it was whiplash for lack of a better term. I was in and then I was told, okay, now I was thrown into this TLC meeting, which is basically like your age out prep meeting in California where I'm from. And yeah, I think I couldn't conceptualize aging out really because when I entered care, my world felt like it was falling apart. I thought I was going to be like denied all the opportunities I thought I was going to have. I thought I wouldn't make it to college. I thought I was going to be moving out of state, like they told me, to be in a group home out of state. So, but none of that happened, thankfully. So, aging out for me was a matter of survival. And I think aging out into going to college, and I stayed in until 21, but they still prepare you for transition when you're 18. So, I was like in survival mode, and that was my downfall eventually 3 years later when I was in school and facing homelessness in New York. So I think, was I prepared to? No. And then I was living in survival mode, pushing 19 credits on a double major, working 3 jobs. I didn't have a social life. I didn't date for 2 years. I didn't have friends. My life was about work and school because I didn't want to face what I had gone through. And then once I experienced that displacement, it all came crumbling down in a different way mentally when I was 20. So then fast forward, I think I talk about aging out in 2 phases, right? Because there are folks who choose to, if they live in a state where foster care is till 21, some of them choose to voluntarily sign out at 18 or 19. And that's totally valid if that's part of their story and the system sucks. So people want to be done with it. But I think it was twofold for me being 18 and finally going to New York by myself, all alone, at a private school, no money. And then fast forward, the second part of aging out is I was turning 21. I turned 21 in February of 2020. So that they asked me again, we had another similar meeting. You're ready to age out. You have everything you need. What do you need? And I was like, yeah, I have my savings. I'm going to finish college next year. It's going to be great. I feel good. I've done a lot of therapy work since my diagnosis and everything when I was homeless and everything. And then a month later, it came crumbling down again. And Governor Gavin Newsom, our California state governor, didn't allow folks who had turned 21 prior to the start of pandemic, but still in 2020. The pandemic official start date was something like March 13th, right? So only youth who turned 21 after that date were allowed to stay in. No one was allowed to re-enter, like myself, for example, who had even youth who turned 21 a day before the official start of the pandemic couldn't go back in. So it was tough. And my mom was in a place to financially support me. She said she would supplement me what I was getting in terms of my stipend, but she decided to rescind that when I decided I still wanted to stay on the East Coast instead of stay with her in California to do my classes. So it was really hard. I had to scrounge and fight. It was definitely not that same survival mode, but it was a different version of it, right? So finally I was able to re-enter briefly that next year in 2021 when I was 22 for 6 months. They let me know late. I could have been in for another year at the beginning of 2021 in January because the governor signed an order amending that mistake of not letting folks stay in. So I was able to go back in for 6 months from June to December of 2021. So I aged out categorically 3 times, which is crazy to think about. So that's a big question when we're talking about aging out. But I think no one's ever truly ready. I feel like I'm still aging out of certain phases of my life. And I think that's just part of being a former foster youth, unfortunately.
Yes, I can confirm that. I'm a little bit older than you, about 9 years older than you. And I feel that's very true. I'm at a different point in my journey because I have more distance between aging out. And I was kicked out at 21 too. I was still an undergrad. I was far from graduating, all these other things. But I think that if you're intentional and aware, it takes a while to firstly have that distance to be able to breathe and to separate yourself from your lived experience. But also, your lived experience is going to follow you for the rest of your life. So, what you choose to do with that is just
1,000%.
yeah, what you choose to do with it. But it gets better. It does get better.
Yeah.
I
Do you feel
really,
like you're the first, like, you feel like it's this crazy thing that happens where I feel like with a lot of foster youth, we had to grow up really quickly, right? So when people didn't know how to do their taxes, I was 18 doing my taxes since I was 16 because I've had a job. And I'm like, you don't know how to do your laundry, you don't know how to do your taxes. Like
yeah,
you're feeling it's this cognitive dissonance where you feel like, people don't know how to raise themselves because we were forced to raise them ourselves. And
yeah,
then, but the other side of it is, oh, we have this massive imposter syndrome. We're like, oh my God, this is the first time I'm doing this. I don't have anyone. Am I doing it right? Because no adult taught me. So it's
yeah.
that constant cognitive dissonance. And I think, which is also what contributes to a lot of mental health struggles in youth, like the parentification, but also the massive imposter syndrome is like, oh, I'm not like these other kids, how they grew up.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I'll also say this too. There are very few people who have been given a detailed blueprint on life. Very
Mm.
few people. Some people have had great parents. Some people have had access to a lot of resources, but very few people feel confident in what they're actually doing. So that helps. Most of my best friends and stuff, they don't know what the hell is going on either. And they
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I'm just a teenage girl at 27.
I'm just a girl and I'm almost 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly.
We're all just girls.
Truly, and I have a whole child and a whole 401k. Like
Yeah.
it's really trippy out here. It's but
Um,
you're doing great though. I resonated really well with your story about undergrad, especially because I also chose to work over have fun, over socializing. Working was a coping skill for me as well. And I carried a full line of credits. I always had 18 credits. It was ridiculous. Looking back, like someone should have told me no. But I always had like,
no, maybe. No, that's bad. No.
really someone that and that's where I think sometimes the parents can step in if you have really good parents who pay attention to you and they can say maybe you're overworking right now or
Right.
maybe it's time to actually have fun or maybe you need to go on a date, okay? And still,
Yeah.
those are little things that really attentive parent because all parents are not good parents just because they're present and all
Yeah.
parents are not good parents just because they have resources or money. Parents
Mm.
who pay attention to you holistically will be able to say maybe we shouldn't do that, maybe let's try something different, maybe come home, let's go on vacation together.
I'm glad you said that because my mom, for the first part of my life, she was a single mom. She was already struggling, right? And then,
Oh, man.
she turned to things that made her struggle more because she didn't have resources available to her as a single mom. But my mom, I feel like, too, I grew up, I'm not first generation American. I was born here. My parents were born here. But I like something that I can relate to. My parents don't have degrees, but so I kind of quasi grew up first generation because my mom was always like, no, you have to get the A's. No, you can do that. Do this, do that. And I was never told, oh no, maybe we shouldn't do that because she had to do everything to
Yeah.
hustle, which like I 100% give her props and our relationship is different today, but I'm still grateful for that. But translating that over to a kid, I have to see something through, even if I don't like it. That's not necessarily the right message, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's just a general parent reflection as opposed to a foster care reflection, but it's all connected.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on these things are changing too. Parents do the best that they can with what they have, even when it doesn't feel good or seem adequate enough to us. But at the same time, as children, I think it's our responsibilities to take what they've given us, good, bad, ugly, or whatever, right? And run with that and learn from their mistakes as well. And it all, I think I like to believe one of my core beliefs is that eventually it'll make sense. I know
Exactly.
it doesn't feel good, right? It's like,
I
you
It only
know,
has to make sense to you, right?
yeah, eventually the pieces will click together and you're like, I understand a little bit at least of why that happened. Let me move us along though. So looking back, and I have ideas on this, but I want you to talk to our audience too. So looking back, what kind of support did you need most during that transition into adulthood? And you had a particularly difficult and unique situation because it happened in the context of the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. So, looking
Mhm.
back, what kind of support did you need when you think systemically and institutionally? What could the system have done for you, and what could people have, as human beings, could have done for you to support you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so much, right? Kids need everything, right? And they deserve everything. But that's definitely in the reality of the system, that's not what it is. I think if I were to boil it down to just a couple of things, like the biggest thing I needed from people in the system, which I think all foster youth can pretty much universally relate to, is a sense of urgency. The adults in charge of my care within the system itself had such a lack of a sense of urgency. I was in care in a county where, because in New York City, foster care is privatized out to agencies. It's just the county that runs it in where I was from in the Bay Area. So it was all city employees, city workers. So it was basically functionally like ACS was just running the whole thing if we're thinking about New York. Maybe there was a month, for example, I my stipend was coming late or didn't come, or when they started to give me my stipend when I turned 18. And I was like, hey, I need my stipend. And then they're like, oh, it takes 2 weeks for the financial worker to respond. And I was like, that's not acceptable. Like, right. So a lot of the adults like didn't have a sense of urgency. Yes, bureaucracy and red tape exists for those folks, but I think there could be a more acute understanding. I was like, I have to pay rent or I have to pay rent here in New York City, or I have to pay my tuition. And they were like, "Oh, that's on you. You didn't budget that." I'm like, "What do you mean I didn't budget that? I'm 18." So I think there's just that lack of a sense of urgency. And then I guess what I needed, I get was more support being out of state for sure. I always say this about my experience before I talk about the out of state piece. I am white. I did not look like my peers or even the social workers, the caseworkers, even the judges. I didn't look like anybody who was touching the system. And because of that, I was thrown a lot of resources or given a little bit more attention, but at the same time, it wasn't quite the resources that I needed. But I also didn't have the language to advocate for myself. So for example, I'll give an example. They spent a lot of time on my case in court and they would just say, "Oh my gosh, you're such a success story. I had good grades. I was going to college, like a private school out of state." They're like, "Oh, we want to spend more time on your case because you're a happy case." At the same time, they aren't spending much time on the youth who had run away last month, or the Hispanic youth who also ran away or struggled, was being like abused by her boyfriend, like things like that. I was experiencing an abusive relationship, but I wasn't getting help for that. And I think on paper I looked good and they wanted to look good on paper that they were praising me, but not giving me exactly quite what I needed. So then going on to the out of state piece, when I came here, I needed resources, right? But even the privately funded resources, also obviously the publicly funded resources, because I didn't age out in New York City or New York State, I wasn't eligible for anything. Even the private foundations told me that I wasn't a New York State foster youth. So that was odd to me because a lot of private foundations, like I'm still getting help from a private org, even though I don't attend school in California. And I didn't age out even in that county in California that I'm getting help from still, and they're still able to help me. So that was really odd coming here. And then when I aged out fully and started my work with CASA New York City, I learned about the Foster Care Bill of Rights in both states. And we had a talk with ACS too. And one of the commissioners, she said that I was eligible for something called reciprocal monitoring. And I could have gotten some support services, definitely not everything youth got, but something while I was in college. They could have paid for my Metro cards. They could have helped me with one simple wish, like getting grants for things. I was eligible for things and I didn't get any form of New York State assistance until actually this year, my last year of law school. Yeah, I think that's, if I were to boil it down to two, yeah, sense of urgency from those adults, sense of urgency and compassion, and definitely something like nationalizing resource and access for youth who are in extended foster care aging out and decide to go out of state because that's super common.
You touched on so many things that I talk about all the time. And it's okay, the familiarity of it feels good because I'm like, I understand a lot of what you've experienced. And I hope that I can even give some insight to areas where you might need it or want it. But also, it's really saddening because we're in two different generations. And to hear these things continuing to persist, I was in Pennsylvania throughout the majority of my for all of my lived experience. You were in two completely different states
Mhm.
across the country, literally from one another, and still having these experiences. Yeah, that speaks volumes. I mean, and as people who do this work in terms of advocacy and telling our stories, it's not surprising to us, but I hope that it's surprising to our audience members because these problems are persisting and you're talking to something super duper important. We need federal protections of people with lived experience in child welfare. It shouldn't be so subjective, it shouldn't be so undefined, and shouldn't be so haphazard. And in fact, we need to have retroactive support as well.
Mhm.
So if you were eligible for these services, they need to give them to you now. Like they need to
Exactly.
forgive my loans that I took on for educating myself while I was in child welfare. Like there
Oh.
needs to be retroactive support. It's it's so much I could go on and on. I'm gonna move us on to our next question.
Yes, yes, no, everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, forgive my it's
No,
absolutely.
because when you think about it, the government is our parent, right? And so
Yeah. And
they're
also,
like, oh,
yeah, everything was kind of like, I would say modernizing. Sorry, just one more brief note. But yeah, I would say modernizing as I was getting ready to age out. They made college free for all foster youth in California at the end of my junior year of
I
college.
understand. Means when I graduated in 2 months.
Yeah. Albeit I didn't want to stay in California for a lot of reasons, safety reasons, a lot of things. But yeah, so it was, I wouldn't trade my education for the world, but yeah, that was tough to witness everything become
Yeah.
modernized or more resources become available after I was gone. Definitely plus sign to everything you're saying.
I understand. Listen, it was literally like a month or two after I graduated with my 2 degrees that they were like, "Oh, kids in Pennsylvania can go to school for free now."
Yeah.
And I was like,
God, yeah.
"Oh, okay."
Laptops. And I was like, come on, I just bought this back.
Listen, what's understood does not need to be explained. I completely get it. But speaking of education, so you did graduate summa cum laude from the new school with two bachelor's degrees. I had two too. I see you out here. So, what role did education play in your life after foster care?
Oh my gosh. So again, super lucky to have my mother, which I think a lot of people in foster care wouldn't say. And again, I know that I was actually, sorry, this is a side note. I was like declining to claim foster youth, like former foster youth status because I entered so late. But my mom, she always made a super huge deal about education. And so she, like I said, both my parents were union workers, don't have college degrees. My mom did get her associates in nursing school while I was when I was 8 years old. She was putting herself through nursing school and watching her do that and make such an emphasis on how important education, that my brain and my knowledge is my power, not just terms of financially, but surviving through life. So I think I just want to say I'm super grateful to have grown up in that environment. And I still agree with that today. Like, education is our most powerful tool. And I would say I've always really loved school. I struggled with math and science. I have a math learning disability that didn't get diagnosed till much later on, but I was always a really great writer. I loved to read. I was such a reader and a writer, and I loved to learn. And high school was high school, right? Everybody's going through it, and no matter foster care or not, everyone's going through it to some degree. But once I got to college, I really, the fact that I went to a liberal arts school, right? I did global studies and dance in both my degrees, but because it was a liberal arts college, I didn't have to really take any gen ed other than writing classes. And that was just magic for me, like being able to study what I wanted and really excelling at it and just really getting to know and utilizing my professors. So I think I always say I'm super lucky and wouldn't change my undergrad education at all. And I also feel that way about law school. So I actually didn't know I wanted to go to law school. My mom, like, I wanted to say gaslight. It's not gaslighting. But She would always just say, "You're gonna be a lawyer someday," or I was argumentative as a child, right? Because whatever. And she'd just be like, "Save it for the courthouse." I get so pissed when she would say that. I'd be like, "I never want to be a lawyer. That's crazy." And graduating into the pandemic, the job market's shot, right? People don't know how to do work from home. It's a mess. I got the first job I was offered, actually, that I interviewed. The first job I was offered was the first job I interviewed for, is what I meant to say. And which was great, but wait till you hear this. The job was being basically a TDM mediator, like family conference mediator for the meetings where you have the caseworker, the parents, and the foster youth. And I was just graduating, experiencing my third or fourth displacement, also in another abusive relationship, not in the right place in my life. It was still the most rigorous interview process I've ever been through, even now as an adult. They simulated a mediation for me. They tested my sign language knowledge. It was a lot. And I got offered the role. I turned it down because I was mentally not in the right place. And then it took me 8 months to find a job that fit me. So I was living off a part-time nanny salary, working in New York City while still trying to manage my mental health, moving into an apartment out of my dorm. A lot of it was going on. And then when the job at my legal aid nonprofit rolled in, I was like, oh, I get to help people. This is really cool. And then once I was in there and started reading court paperwork every day for my job and listening and talking to attorneys, I was like, hey, I want to do law, albeit not landlord tenant. I always tell people I don't want to fight landlords. That's crazy. I want to fight the US government. But that's when law school really became a possibility. And I was really interested because right after I graduated, I did apply to some grad schools. I applied to social work school and I got into UMich and I deferred for years. But because I was like, ooh, Michigan cold. And also don't know if I want to do social work. The payout's not great. Surprise, plot twist, I'll still be getting paid what a social worker gets post-grad, even though I have a law degree because I'm going to do public interest. But really loved CUNY law. It's affordable. It's for people who have lived experience across all the different fields, like immigrants, formerly incarcerated folks. It's really awesome. And so I've also been super blessed and love the opportunities I've had. So education to me is really important. I'm a school person, like I say. I like academic validation, don't know what I'm going to do without it. But yeah, it'll be my last semester here, upcoming last semester of school ever. So it's a bittersweet question.
Oh, Leanna, we have so much in common. I don't know who I am right now because I'm not in school. And like, I'm like, what is this? I'm like, do I get another master's? So I just like, I'm like over here fiending for.
No, that's crazy.
I want to get a PhD. I really do, but I want to make sure that it's something that I'm actually going to enjoy, not just at this point in my life, but for the rest of my life, because I think that I want to be a researcher. And so I really want to know that I love it and it's something that will fit and flex with me forever. I have some really good ideas, but I just want to make sure that the nuance of it and is right. And I want to get more information about because a PhD is a really long commitment. And you have
Exactly.
to have the supports in place and the resources and the networks to support you through it because it's not just the learning either. It's the institution and it's the people that you're studying under and alongside too. One day. I'm manifesting it one day soon.
Yeah, you're pondering on it.
I'm pondering, pontificating. I've been pondering for 10 years.
You also have a PhD in the form of a small child. So, you got to nurture that as well.
I do. You know what? And like also, yeah, but our lived experience too. I have 17 years of lived experience in child welfare. And it's like, I don't want to get too caught up in the institutional aspect of academia where it's like we only validate what has a title and what is tied to an institution. I have a wealth of knowledge already within myself that there are things that can be done with that and to just acknowledge that and leverage that as well. It's something, but if I can offer one little insight or perspective, I think it's okay and healthy to explore who you are outside of academia. It's weird.
Of course, it is.
It's weird.
And yeah, and like I think therapy has really helped with that. And the fact that I've, like the pandemic changed the way we make friends and stuff like that. And it
Mhm.
sensationalized the internet even more than it already was and changed
Yeah.
the internet. Like I think it challenged me in a good way to try new things and expand out and meet other people. So I think I was able to do that. And I don't get people who, and no shame to it, like obviously, like these are people who probably have a little bit more financial privilege than I do, but people who go straight in from like undergrad to grad school, law school, PhD, whatever you have it. And I wanted that experience working. I wanted that notoriety in the field. I wanted my connections before I wanted to experience working to know what I exactly wanted to do. Because I feel like you really don't know who you are if you go from one school into another. I really believe it should be mandatory that you take at least a year or two break, which is what I did because I wasn't clear on what I wanted to do. And that's why would I pay more money to do something that I wouldn't eventually use?
I agree with you. And I think it gives you a chance to savor it. Like
Mhm.
hopping from one program to the next, it's just like you get in this mode of work and hustle and grind. And for someone who it sounds like you also resonate, love education as much as I do. Like it can be hard to step back and just savor it sometimes when you're in the flow and grind of working it. So I'm here for you. I support your journey. I'm really glad to hear of your successes, and it sounds like you're on a beautiful path. I met you through CASA NYC because you did our YVR journalism trainings with us. I believe you have some publications either in the queue or that have already come out. Did you submit yet? I think you
I have
did.
not
Yeah.
submitted, but no, I've been
I'm
no.
manifesting it.
I will. You're gonna get me. You're gonna get me
Yeah.
when I graduate and want to what is it called? Procrastinate studying for the bar. I'll submit something. But no, I just have given quote a couple of times for the imprint. So that's then my publication. My short film was in Dance Dice magazine. But other than that, no written publications from me.
I'm manifesting you publishing with us sooner than later. Everyone here, please go and read her piece in the future. But so you serve on the CASA NYC Youth Advisory Board and as a children's rights legislation liaison. So can you talk a little bit about what drew you to that work? It might seem obvious, but just break it
Oh.
down for our audience.
Yeah, I actually wasn't looking to share about my lived experience like when I found out about CASA. So CASA, I've known CASA's always been this white noise in the background that I knew about while I was in care, but it wasn't really a thing where I was, or I'm not sure. It was only really given to youth who were like struggling, right? And I think we had a shortage of CASAs. It was based by county, and I don't think Alameda County has had a CASA or functioning one for a while. So I never had one, but I loved the concept. I've always heard about the concept, and I actually wanted to be a volunteer advocate. So I wanted to be an advocate. And so I applied to be an advocate through that process at CASA NYC. I was interviewed by this longtime veteran advocate, and she was like, "You should be on the youth advisory board. You need to use your experience. I don't think you should be an advocate." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't think other foster youth would accept me because of my short term experience." Like I said, I was imposter syndroming my identity around that because of how short of a time, like how long I was like with my family, my short time in care. And I was reached out to by the fellow at the time and was interviewed and joined the board in September 2023. And it's been amazing. And I tell people, and it's shocking for people to hear this, that that was the first time I met another youth in foster care. Because like I always say this,
I
like
am shocked. My mouth dropped, audience.
and this is gonna be like this is always my hill I will die on, but foster care is meant to be isolating on purpose. It's
Mm,
designed bad on purpose and it's isolating on purpose. They don't want other youth together. Like that's why group home conditions are so poor. They don't want other youth together to like coalesce and organize about their experience, right? Just like how corporate America doesn't want folks unionizing. I'm also a union girl myself. So yeah, but they don't want us to talk to each other about how bad it's gotten because then
yeah.
they're gonna actually have to be held accountable and like horrible things are coming out, right? Like more visibility on how bad the system has come out ever since the trials of Gabriel Fernandez, other things like that. And so, yeah, I never met another youth until I was 24. So I joined the board when I was 24 and or I was 23, 24, and I've been there since September 2023. And it took a while for us to kind of get organized on our goals, but we've been working on this foster care Bill of Rights project where we're educating youth in New York and surveying youth in New York. We've actually went and educated ACS because a lot of them didn't know about the foster care Bill of Rights. We've talked to CASA of New York State, Greater New York State, and then we are going to be bringing it to SILPs and group homes. So that is a big part of what I do. And then the children's rights legislative liaison role that I took on has been this past year working with the organization called Children's Rights. They bring impact litigation, i.e., lawsuits on behalf of youth, not just foster youth, just youth who have been wronged by the government, other public systems. And so they have a legislation team. Part of their work is also they lobby for legislation. And they are lobbying for New York State legislation around reforming mandated reporting. So it's the Supporting Families Together Act, and they are looking to, do away with anonymous reporting and basically lower the penalties for not reporting. Because as we know, a lot of communities of color, Black and brown mothers and families are reported simply for just being poor or being on public assistance and welfare. And that results, the racism of the system results in those youth being removed, even if there's no actual fundamental neglect found. So they're hoping to reform that. And actually, the bill actually also aims, which I like, I wouldn't be supporting the bill and part of the working group if they weren't actually looking to also bolster the way support services work. So if there is a report that comes in and there's an investigation, they can have a worker not just stay on to monitor them, but have this community support, have this support in place that is non-punitive, non-probation. It's more like, okay, we're going to get you the support you need, and here it is, and build that community care therein. That's the work I do on the group. I'm like CASA's ear into that space. And also we've done legislation stuff around safe passage, like you said, and reinforcing court orders after youth age out. So it's been a really awesome experience. And I've expanded that to working with Foster Club on opportunities as well. But I'll quit yapping about that. But yeah, I think having youth to relate to that have also been in care has done wonders for my mental health. They are my family. We're comrades in such a deeper, different way. And I love training advocates and speaking about my experience and effectuating change. And I think that's what I knew I was always meant to do growing up.
Mothers know. They know. Even when you don't know, they know. I hate to admit it. And as a new mom myself, I'm embracing that one day I'll just know. I just,
Because I said so.
No, I don't do that. I don't.
No, I know, I'm joking.
But actually, no, I saw something the other day and I follow a lot of parenting pages, a lot of child psychologists and child development specialists and things. And I really love the experience that this one parent shared. He was talking about how he likes to explain things to his children. He never likes to dismiss them with because I said so. But he gave them this caveat. He said, if I ever say because I said so right now, it means that we are in imminent danger and I need you to listen to everything I'm saying and respond immediately. And so for him, whenever he says, because I said so, it's an emergency. And his children also know. So in that regard, I might use that with Jada and my son. But no, I like to explain things.
Where it's like it's not a learning moment where you're like, where he's on the ledge of a cliff and you're like, because get back over here because I said so. That's not a learning moment where you sit and explain. So yeah, I had a feeling that's what you were gonna say. It's like it's an emergent situation. Yeah, which like
Yeah.
I never had kids, which I'm not feeling like I want to, but
I support that 100%. Someone with children.
I used to be 50-50 truly. I used to be
Yeah.
if it happens, if it doesn't. But I had surgery earlier this year, and that surgery, I will just say, it put into perspective what postpartum mothers go through. That's all I'll say about that. But I was like, wow, I can't imagine healing from this and having a screaming child that I need to feed. So that the body of it, my body being that vessel and being permanently kind of that vessel, right? And so, yeah, I've always wanted to foster youth, though. I still want the shortage of good foster parents.
Yeah, totally.
Which actually, I had my first client who, at my day job, it just made me a little frustrated just because this is my first time I have clients who've adopted youth and you still get the adoption stipend in this state, but that they're good parents. But there was this one client, I was going to apply for assistance for her, and you have to say who's all in the household, state your income. And we were all under the impression she lived alone. She's been getting almost 4K a month for 2 foster youth that she forgot to tell us about, that she had foster youth. So, that's the first time so this is a new experience for me where I'm like, okay, I need to practice, I need to practice not judging this woman. And yeah, and I think she didn't tell us about them on purpose just because.
Probably. How do you forget about
She would have been over income for her services because we follow the poverty level. We are state and city funded. So she would have been over the income limits. And for our services, for our representation, obviously we don't turn people away after we're already representing them. But yeah, so that was my first time seeing that experience. Sorry, just tangent. But yeah, I think the concept of kids, a lot of the foster youth I know are already parents or really feel strongly they want to be parents. And I think that's beautiful for me. I'm a very much a career person. I feel like you're also a career person, and your son was blessed into your life in a way that wasn't planned. And so I think that's also commendable, and you can still have both at the same time.
I understand all the perspectives, and I thought that I wanted to have multiple children myself. I never envisioned me becoming a mother in this way, transparently. I talk about that a lot, though. It's definitely been an adjustment, but it was necessary. And I think that more people need to make sacrifices for the children and their families. And we'd be having different conversations about child welfare engagement, right? But also,
Kinship care models are my partner was in kinship. He didn't even know he was in kinship. He was like, "Oh, my aunt and uncle adopted me." I'm like, "So you were a ward?" And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "You were functioning in you were in foster care." And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "If they were able to adopt you, yes, you were."
yes, you were. It's okay. Come join us.
Exactly.
Like,
So yeah, he was kinship, and that obviously saved his life. He
yeah,
took this from a massive family, and I did not.
yeah, that too. Yeah. I understand. It's important though, but it's important to also honor who you are and your capacity for parenting. And I think it's beautiful if you do want to enter into parenting in any kind of way. I'm here to share my experiences offline if you would like. But yeah, career is important to me and important to you. And I think that navigating the two of those in whichever way you choose to do it will definitely be a journey. I'm not going to pretend it's not. So
100%.
yeah, when the time comes, I'm sure that it will be something you're
Yeah,
motivated.
I'm under no pretenses. I was a nanny, right? I was responsible for other people's kids. So I listen.
You've already experienced it. That's half the work, honestly. Yeah. I support whatever decisions you do or don't make.
Right.
No judgment over here. But also, one thing for our audience, and this is someone who I spent 17 years in foster care. I never think about foster or adoptive youth as paychecks. And it really blows me that people do. And never, when I think about taking children into my home, I don't even think about the money that might come with them either. I think about all the responsibility and the love that I need to give them.
Exactly.
The financial part doesn't blow my it blows my mind that people really take kids under the pretense of I'm going to get an extra 4K a month.
Exactly. And I didn't believe that either when I first came into I knew that parents, foster parents and placements got paid, but I didn't know how much. And also I didn't think that was why, right? Until I experienced and got in the room with other youth in my mid 20s and started hearing about their experiences. And I think it honestly does happen in more metropolitan areas. Because I was
Mm.
surprised how big the paychecks are. Like basically this client of mine gets 2,000 a kid practically. She makes almost $4,000. And I'm like, that is life-changing money in New York City
Yeah.
for folks that, and it's a product of the system and capitalism and poverty, right? And I won't get on my democratic socialist hill.
But we love that hill, by the way.
Love that hill. I love it. And Zoran Mamdani's the king of it, right?
We
But
love it.
but I think I get it, but also it's messed up, right? And I think it's hard to see that in the face of your own suffering, which I get,
Mm.
right? And so, yeah, I would never ever see a child as a paycheck. And you can, and honestly, it happens too. People are like, oh, these people must not have children of their own. No, they do. That's the thing. Like,
A lot of them
you're
do. Yes.
poor, when you're dirt poor or you're homeless, you'll do anything you can to get yourself out of that, even if it's something you would have never ever considered morally for yourself. That's how people view it. People view it as a last ditch thing as such as selling drugs, trafficking, those type of things. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things and it's unfortunate because those actually have more I don't want to say drugs don't have tangible consequences, but more tangible consequences on young lives that will affect generations. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, definitely that's how I think about it.
Just to resurface this thought for our audience as well, too, another way that people get more money for foster youth is to get them diagnosed and medicated, right?
Oh,
And so when children are diagnosed with different things and when they take certain types of medications or have certain medical protocols, they also get more money for having them in their home. And the same goes for just people with their own biological children. They can get certain services or certain resources.
Social Security, disability
Mhm.
benefit, of course, and those go to their guardian. Yeah.
It's insidious and it's happening and it's hurting children, like you said. It has very real consequences that trickle beyond the generations and that are ultimately degrading our society because it's affecting people's quality of lives and well-being. But let me hop off of that. Let me wrap this conversation up too, because we've been chatting for a while today. I just have one more question and then I'll get into my transition questions towards the end. So you've worked across foster care reform, housing justice, immigrant justice, juvenile justice, and advocacy. In your opinion, what connects all of these areas for you?
Oh my gosh, I've never been asked that question. So you're awesome for asking. I think what connects all of that is, and I hate to compare it process model. It's just like sometimes, and I say it even with my clients, but especially when it comes to youth. Sometimes I'm the first foster youth they need now, or I'm the first adult who's given a crap, right? Who has cared. And even if they hate me, even if I don't look like them, or even if people like me have, which let's be real, like white women to the people of color and those youth have caused a lot of harm. And so they have no reason to trust me and they don't have to trust me. The reason that I do it is so that I might be the first person to compassionately listen and even remember those details about them. So even if they say they hate me to my face the first time, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I remembered that your favorite game is Uno, and I'm gonna bring that, even if you don't want to play it. And that means something, right? Because these youth are often not listened to, regardless of the situation they're in, because they're judged based on how they look or their experience in the system, whether that be juvenile, immigrant, or child welfare. They all exist to police families and youth. And I want to fight this fight against that oppression with compassion and use that compassion to effectuate change too. And I think the biggest way to leverage change is to leverage my privilege. And I think the law is the highest form of helping other people. So I think often I'm the first person that will ever truly listen to them. And that's sad, but I can also hopefully model that compassion for my peers in the field that I'm going into. And that creates change. I used to think I have to change laws, change the world, be the president. And I think a lot of us think that when it comes to change, but a lot of it is also what happens in the interpersonal and modeling it for other adults too, that changes the world. So for me, I always knew I wanted to help people and I want to do it with compassion is what connects it all together.
Thank you for sharing. And hey, if you want to be president one day, why not?
I don't. I don't know why I said that.
Like the world is your oyster.
It's just I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I get no, I think too, there's so much conditioning that goes into that thought process, right? You think that your change and your impact has to be grandiose and historical, but it's really in the everyday moments that your change is most made and that your legacy is defined. It's not necessarily about what people see in your obituary when you pass away. It's about
Exactly. And
how
that's why
you
change happens so much slower is because people forget, people
Mhm.
think it has to be grandiose. That's why legislation and ratifying the Constitution, like all of these things happen that way because people think that's the only way.
Yeah.
And we've lost sight of it in our day to day. So that's what I hope to bring that brevity to like the idea of change.
I love that. Let's wrap up this conversation. This doesn't have to be the last time that you come on interviews, but we do appreciate you. And we're manifesting that you're going to write with us at Youth Voices Rising sooner than later.
And manifest
We're manifesting it
the bar.
after the bar, after you successfully pass the bar the first time, okay?
My sworn mortal enemy, the bar.
No, it's going to be great. You've survived every moment up until now. You can get through that too. So, your favorite quote is from Audre Lorde. I'm not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. Why does that quote resonate with you?
Wow, yeah, I think it's what I was just talking about. I am a woman, but I'm not a Black woman. I am a woman, but I'm not an immigrant. And I think to me that embodies intersectionality in the struggle. And just because I am technically free and I don't have social oppression, like when I walk into a store, I'm not followed. That doesn't mean my other peer, like my other friends, don't experience that. That means I can't stop fighting. A lot of people think they need to stop fighting when they're free, and that's the functionality of white supremacy and white privilege. And what's called white silence is violence, that whole concept. So I think to me, I can't stop fighting until all of us are free. Just because I'm queer, I'm a queer woman who is in a hetero presenting relationship, I can't stop fighting for other queer folks. So to me, the fight is never over until we are all free from oppression at the hands of the state. So that's what guides my advocacy, which is why I love that quote so much.
I love it too. I love Audre Lorde. She is just amazing.
Yes, I had a professor who knew her. Actually, it was a huge flex.
Oh,
Wait, did she die recently?
yeah, she passed away.
Yeah, and so I remember that a couple years ago she died, and she's like, "Yeah, my good friend." I'm like, "What?"
And that's one of the reasons why I love academia too, right? Because you just have these cool professors who just saunter in and they're like, they know
Gosh,
all
one
this
of the coolest
stuff.
professors at our law professors at our school. Shout out Ann Cammett. She's amazing. But
Right. And they have this quirky sense of style. They're like confident, but so smart. And they're like, yeah, me and Obama were just talking the other day. I'm like, what? What are you talking
oh yeah, my friend Sonia Sotomayor. I'm like, hello.
about? They're like, yeah, Beyonce's my cousin, but that's not it. And I'm like, oh, I love academia. It's just so cool. But
Uh-huh.
okay, let me wrap us up seriously this time.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
so Leigh-Anna, who are you without the trauma of child welfare?
Who am I? I'm myself unapologetically, even with and without, right? I am somebody who loves art. I love dance. I love my friends, my chosen family, my foster family. I love my mother. I am all of the people who have influenced me, made me a better person to this day. I'm all of these people who have reached out to help me when I thought I couldn't help myself. And I think I'm I don't want to say I'm better for it because nobody deserves to experience it, but I am somebody who just loves life and wants to extract every little last juice out of life, which is why I'm going on this massive trip here soon. But I just want to experience life. And I think I would have wanted that even had I not gone through all of this. I think I still would have ended up helping people, just not with the holistic and approach that I'm taking now, even by coming on this podcast. So I think I am more ambitious. I'm answering your question in the negative, actually, in what you asked. But
It's
I think I
okay.
am still somebody who wants to help people. I am somebody who's always loved art and creativity. And I hope I never lose that about myself.
Yeah. I think you're touching on just radical acceptance. I talk to my therapist about this all the time. And I think that it's not about feeling like we're deserving of this lived experience. It's just embracing that as a reality. It's a part of who we are. It sounds like you've radically accepted that and you found meaning of that within your life and personally and professionally. And so that's really cool. Okay. So what gives you hope, Leanna?
What gives me hope? Honestly, lately the foster youth I've encountered. I didn't start working directly with youth until this past year with CASA and with Foster Club. Past year and a half, I was mostly working with advocates and adult stakeholders in the system, and that's exhausting in its own way, having to teach folks how to be compassionate towards youth, but less so with the advocates at CASA, less so with the advocates, but more so with stakeholders. But I think working with youth, I am inspired by their I was not able to articulate my story and my trauma and my what I want to see change with the system as articulately as they are, like at that, like when I was that age. So to me, it gives me hope because I think because of the way the pandemic has been, how social media has changed, people and young people are more better able to put their finger to the pulse of what's actually going on. And I think that we should not dismiss that just because it's a product of social media advocacy and everything. So I think to me, that gives me hope because these youth are really articulate about what they are experiencing and how they can change it. And we're seeing more mobilization in the field of lived experience leaders now than was before. And it's really causing an impact, especially even though with this administration, it sucks, but the first lady's issue is foster youth. And youth are really taking that and running with it, even if they don't agree with Trump. So to me, take a win is a win, take it, run, and use it. And so I think that's what's giving me hope right now in terms of this field.
That's beautiful. I feel like this might somewhat be related to your response, but feel free to answer freely. What change do you hope to see in your lifetime in the child welfare system?
Like I said, more compassion. I hope, obviously, nationalizing resources. It's hard to do that because it's the states, each of the states' responsibility to administer their system and benefits to youth. But I think I want to just see a more compassionate system, a system that doesn't criminalize children, a system that doesn't have a pipeline, foster care to prison pipeline, foster care to institutionalization generally, like we were talking about with medication. But I want the system to be built on community care and holistic intervention into families, as opposed to criminalizing and furthering that cycle of poverty. So I really hope that we can holisticify, I made that up just now, foster care and
Love
also
it.
put more resources into kinship and really change the outcome for youth by investing in families as opposed to policing them.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much. Leigh-Anna Faith, everyone. Thank you, Leanna, for being here. Hopefully, this is not the last time. We are so proud of you here at Youth Voices Rising for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that you will continue to do, because I know it's going to be fantastic. And I'm excited to see the journey. If you want to get in touch with Leanna, where can people find you, support your work, or follow what you do?
Sure, yeah. I am on Instagram, Leigh-Anna Faith. My LinkedIn is my legal last name, Leanna Nielsen, Nielsen. If you want to connect with me professionally, or just on social media, on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. I have some crazy TikToks, but yeah, so prefer Instagram. But all my social media is at Leigh-Anna Faith, no hyphen, so you can connect with me there.
Leigh-Anna Faith, everyone, thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you.
The InnerViews podcast is a production of the Safe Camp Audio Network, which is a division of Youth Voices Rising via Fostering Media Connections. Please visit safecampaudio.org on the web or Safe Camp Audio on all major social media. This podcast was produced and mixed by Christine Onjoko. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you consider sharing, subscribing, and or giving us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcast.